It's a beautiful bacon day, Cookie Crusaders. Today we're going to run into a team that is being used in the meta a lot, but there's going to be a little bit of caveat changes here. So I've been experimenting with toppings and trying to find the most optimal setups. And so what we have here is toppings on these 5 different cookies that in most cases you wouldn't relatively expect. So with Wild Berry to start, we have Syrian attack toppings. The idea behind these topping setups is that we're not necessarily plowing more substats into the already existing stats that we're getting, but rather getting other substats focus. So for instance, here with Wildberry, we have Syrian attack toppings, but we don't push further into the attack side of the substats. Instead, our main focus is the damage resistance, the cooldown, and the defense for Wildberry, so that way, when he's on the battlefield, he can get his activations, he can have his defenses, and then he can already do high damage attacks increased by the Syrian toppings. When we go over to Financier Cookie, we have the peanut toppings because Financier has a huge HP pool already. So we use the peanut toppings to take Financier's HP above 500,000 mark, which is a huge amount and able to well outlive all the cookies that have the 300,000 relative damage attack, so that was an important piece of why we chose peanut toppings. But we also did damage resistance, defense, and cooldown as the focus for the peanut toppings, because the defense is also naturally high on Financier, so we wanted to utilize both that and the damage resistance. For Caramel Arrow, we chose the attack speed toppings. That way we could get the maximum arrow stacks on any opposing team, and if they didn't have Wildberry, it would be in our benefit because we would get that full burst attack when Caramel Arrow does it. So the attack speed is super important here. The other 2 big stats we focused on was damage resistance and attack percentage. So instead of giving all of our percents to attack speed, we mostly focused in on attack, damage resistance, and then either critical resistance or HP, whichever came next, because we focused on like 2 specific stats, and then we took whatever was left over from the others. Sadly, even though as long as I've been playing, I still don't have perfect toppings that I can min-max 3 specific topping substats at the same time. So that's why you still see numbers a little bit scattered around, like the 1.6% crit. That's just because that was what was on that topping. We didn't have something better to choose from. Now with Black Pearl, we are running cooldown toppings, but as you can see, the main focus here is damage resistance. We're only 3% off from the max substat capable damage resistance you can get on a topping. And we chose a little bit of crit resist and defense as well. So our main focus with Black Pearl was we do want cooldown, we do want the activation to happen more often, but we want to have a lot of defensive structure put into Black Pearl because we know how low her HP and how squishy she is. So for that reason, we want a defensive structure so that her attacks can happen and they can happen strongly. And then with Cream Unicorn, we did a cooldown focus, and our 3 main substats beyond the cooldown were damage resistance, critical resistance, and attack speed. Attack speed doesn't work on every cookie, but it helps with healers so that they have that auto attack healing faster and gets them to a point where they are keeping the team alive just a little bit longer. So we're going to go ahead and take it into battle and show you what's going on. Now, of course, there's still going to be teams that can counter this team. However, it's performing very well, and with the adjustments that we've made, it's also doing good in that instance too. Caramel Arrow, even though running attack speed toppings, the caramel toppings, is still getting the buff from Financier Cookie. So still getting an attack buff while doing a faster animation and a faster speed. So in most cases, it's outpacing other caramel arrows that we're running across. And as you can see, even though we aren't running defensive toppings on Wildberry, we still have plenty of damage resistance keeping Wildberry alive, and plenty of attack too. Like the stats right here are just blended out nicely. You can see that Caviar and Caramel Arrow were the heavy carries on their team. Our team is just a nice blend. The way we're setting up the toppings, the way we're putting them together, it's a nice even balance of what everyone's doing. The damage received, pretty even as well. And the healing, you can see right there, even though they had a Black Pearl, that attack speed buff on Cream Unicorn made our healing just absolutely go berserk. Like, you gotta think, 3.8 million with a healing debuff from Black Pearl from the enemy team. But our healing debuff on theirs was much stronger. So that's why the attack speed's on Unicorn for that reason, to help give us that extra push. So let's take it against a couple other teams. Espresso's good here because of the injury and the interruption. That's going to help their team have a little bit of advantage in against our team. Their Vampire has a potential good chance to one-shot our Cream Unicorn depending on the timing of their skills. But you can see, like, Cream Unicorn is just keeping up with the speed. Yes, Vampire does end up one-shotting Cream Unicorn down. That's just the way it's set because we don't have perfect damage resistance. But overall, still amazing. Like, look at that, 3.2 million. So attack speed on healers, absolutely super helpful. And I think it's an underutilized thing that no one's really considered too much. And I'm considering more as I've been testing more toppings out. But you gotta still blend it with the right team. If you just haphazardly just put it on and throw it into any team, it's not going to be perfect. Yes, it'll be better, but it won't be perfect. But really what's utilizing here is that Unicorn and Caramel Arrow are the two getting the road buff. They're the two that are pulling the attack speed buff, and so they're the ones that are mitigating the team and putting everything together as best as possible. And see, we still lose Cream Unicorn here because of their Vampire, but the rest of our team just annihilates through. Absolutely pushes through. So this team is not only doing great in the meta, but the topping adjustments are really what's helping too. So I want to stress that a lot, is that I'm still working on practicing with it, but I'm kind of dividing it in two different sections. There's guild battle toppings, and there's every other mode toppings. Guild battle, you kind of have to focus on three specific things: attack, cooldown, damage resist. There's not too much else you can work with in most scenarios in the guild battles. You can work on attack speed for Avatar, but you can just use specific units for that. But as far as your other units, in most cases, attack, cooldown, damage resistance, that's going to be your three main things that work well for you. Where in all the other game modes, we focus on those stats too, but if there's other stats that shine out, we want to accentuate that and take it to the next level. So that's why we use peanut toppings for Financier. We wanted that HP to go super high, and I can actually show you that. So 517,000 HP. Absolutely massive pool. Massive pool of HP. Look at the defense too, 121,000 defense. If we go to our Caramel Arrow, we already have a high HP marker in Caramel Arrow. So we already know Caramel has a high HP pool. And the attack is still super high too, same with defense. So we wanted speed because we didn't really need to buff all the other stats. So we said, okay, the other stats are super high, let's give it speed so it's just compromising all the other stats pooled together. Black Pearl, like I said, the attack and defense, amazing, and that's hitting multiple enemies and multiple units against the enemy team, so we already know that's strong. So that's why we put a lot of defensive focus on Black Pearl. We wanted to make sure Black Pearl could stay alive, carry through, and keep doing that damage. Cream Unicorn, healthy HP, good attack, good defense. Really just the main focus was just pushing that healing as fast as possible. And then Wildberry, same thing, high HP pool, high defense pool, but because of the specific skill that Wildberry uses, and we know that it ricochets back attacks posed against Wildberry, that's why we chose attack stats, because we wanted to make sure that those were just being used as much as possible. So I hope this guide has been helpful for you. You're going to start seeing some more teams with a little bit more funky setups, at least funky for what you're used to, but I'm very genuinely thinking about how to set these teams up, how to push their skills and their stats to the absolute boundaries, and I look forward to seeing what results we can come up with. Thank you so much for stopping by, and have a wonderful day.